Hey everybody, today is Friday, October 28th. I can't believe we are at the end of another week and we are at a great place in our reading. Um, I will tell you the story of Jesus' death becomes very, very real. If this is your first time reading through with me or ever reading through the Bible at all, the story of Jesus' death it becomes very, very real as we move through, and you will see over the weekend that the plot thickens, um, the betrayal comes, the Last Supper. A lot of this we will be getting to Jesus' death really soon. So be prepared because you will experience it like you've never experienced it before. I remember the first time reading it through, it's just still, it just falls fresh every time that they actually killed him for no reason. And of course, we know that was the reason he came. He was born to die. Um, but it still becomes very, very real. So be prepared for that part of the emotions. Um, and our lesson today comes from the story of the servants. I am constantly amazed. He never ceases to amaze me as I sit here and writing this study, how his word comes alive and it's different every time we read it. This story I've heard, I've taught on it. Today, our key verse, it just jumped out fresh at me, dividing it in proportions to their abilities. And he was talking about the talents, their money, the silver. The man was going on this long trip and he had silver. So it's also called the talents. It's all, but according to Scripture, he divided according to their abilities. And I just wanted to take a deeper look at that for a few minutes today. God doesn't ask us to do something we cannot do. And I want us to kind of deepen into that. He sees our potential when we can't see it at all. There's story after story after story about people that God called that were scared of their calling, that argued with God about their calling, that didn't feel confident, that didn't feel that they were equipped to follow through with what God was asking them to do. But we can trust God to only give us and divide his assignments for his children according to our abilities, even if we can't see that ability. I've said for years, God doesn't, this is I think a John Piper quote. I'm not sure. I've heard Lisa Turker say it several times, but God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And that's true. But I do want to add an element to that. He calls us according to our abilities and our potential, even when we can't see it. I put the definition down here for potential, and this is the message part. This is like a snippet of a message that I did at She Speaks this year, and I spoke at Central Church just recently in St. Joseph's. But it's interesting when we break down that definition of potential, how it applies to what God sees in us, even if we don't see it in ourselves. It's present, but may not be visible at the time or actualized. It's possible, but it might not be actual. And it's someone or something that is considered a worthwhile possibility. So many times we respond like the servant did who did nothing. He says in verse 25, I was afraid. And so many times we respond to God's assignment for us, whether it's big or small, we respond with fear. And we say no, or we move forward with doubt instead of moving forward with full obedience and confidence in his confidence in us. He placed the confidence in us because of his abilities that he has given to us. So for us to respond in fear and doubt is telling God we don't believe he chose the right person for the job. And he does choose the right people for the right jobs. So we need to just bottom line it here is our potential is present, but it may not be visible. And it's possible, but it may not be actual right now. But God sees something in you. He sees something in me. He sees something in all of his children. He sees that we're worthwhile possibilities. And he divides the gifts and the talents among us. He divides the tasks and the assignments in his story among us according to our abilities. He will not ask us to do something that he has not equipped us to do already, and perhaps we don't see it. Or, as the definition says, he will develop in us through our obedience and our yes to him. So what do we need to do? We need to not allow fear to keep us from saying our yes to God and using what he's called us to do. And we need to trust not our confidence, but his confidence in us. We need to carry through with obedience. That's for me. Whatever he calls me to do, carry through with obedience, not in my confidence in me, because then when the end gets there, I might be tempted to take the glory, and I never want to do that for my God. I want to have confidence in him. So let's just allow him to reveal our hidden potential and allow him to develop in us his equipping for what he's called us to do. Y'all have a marvelous weekend, and I will see you Monday face to face.